A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express Papers Chandigarh edition. Now, from today's newspaper, we have something new from GS3 perspective, that is torrefication. It is simply a process of converting stubble into pellets, which can in turn be used as fuel. Okay, so this one. Then, because of inflation, we were expecting the RBI to increase the rates. That has not happened. So we have an editorial on that. We also have it on the front page actually. But when it comes to editorial, I'll discuss as to what are the reasons for doing so. Now, with respect to inflation, again in the economy section, we hear that RBI has not increased the rates, but it is engaging in open market operations. And because of this, the yields have increased, the bond yield, and the interest rates of the banks have increased. So what is the relationship? I think this is something that is important. So this is because with respect to economy. Then from the editorial section again, there was something about gender politics, some critical write-up on gender politics. Briefly, we will discuss what are the concerns. Okay. In the IR section, we have the world news, which is Biden and Xi are expected to meet. Some framework is being established so that normalization of relationship happens between China and US. South China Sea is in news again with respect to China and Philippines, China and Vietnam. Now, the most important topic was there was an address by Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister. He says that in 2 years from now, we are going to uproot left-wing extremism or Naxalism. Obviously, this is a very, very, very important topic from GS3 point of view. GS3 covers internal security. So if you follow me on Telegram, you would know that I have done that analysis and shared with you, right? So this has to be prepared. Repeatedly, questions are being asked in the mains paper. Now coming to the front page. So we'll just quickly go through the news, and when these topics come, then we'll go into the detail mode. So the first news is about the glacial lake outburst flood. Right. Now, if you want to read the analysis, I keep saying this, it is a very important topic. You should prepare it. So I came across this from Byju's, right? So we have the definition of the glacial lake outburst flood. What are the causes and what remedial measures or what suggestions are there? So you can refer to this link. I think that is good enough. Yesterday, day before yesterday, we saw the definition. Again, yesterday we did it. Then we had some of the recommendations of the NDMA. So all of them is there on the same page. So I think you may just refer to this. This is good enough. Okay. So concerns about this glacial lake outburst flood has been expressed since 2005. Right, so it was there, and this is concerned with the Teesta River, which flows through Sikkim, Bhutan, Sikkim, West Bengal, and then eventually Bangladesh. With reference to Bangladesh, India-Bangladesh relations, then also we hear about Teesta River. This we'll discuss in the editorial opinion section, right? So that time we will do it. Just a second. Nothing much actually. It's just that when we move forward, we get it. Okay. A lot of these frauds are taking place, insurance fraud cases, basically employees from the insurance companies, ex-employees most likely. They are fooling people, especially retired people who have lot capital as part of the provident fund maturing and all those things. So they are being asked to invest in schemes. The problem is that the schemes are nothing. It's just a way of taking money on a regular basis from these vulnerable people. So this has come to light. Okay. So financial sector, need for financial literacy, right? So those things come to mind. Satluj Yamuna link, history has been explained over here. But I don't think that we should worry about at the moment. Now coming to the issue of stubble burning, right? Yeah. So stubble, the paddy, the straw that is left behind after harvest, that is known as stubble. Farmers prefer to burn this stubble so that they are able to clear the field quickly, and they grow rabi crop or the next. They are ready for the next cycle of crops. Okay. So yes. Now, one of the approach of dealing with the stubble is, why not convert this stubble that is there into pellets, compress it and use it as pellets as a fuel and burn it as a fuel. So why not do this? So today's focus is on this approach, converting the stubble straw into pellets which can be used as fuel. So Punjab government has come up with a policy of converting the stubble straw into pellets, and these pellets are to be used as fuel in brick kiln where bricks are made. So coal is used. So 20% of that fuel, so 80% can be coal, and 20% of this can be this pellets made from straw. Right. So that is the policy that they have come up with. So just focus on the things that are written in the blue ink. Okay, so this is one of the approach. Obviously, the stubble. What to do with the stubble? Use it in the form of pellets. Make a fuel, and farmers can sell this. So stubble is now of economic value. So that is the basic idea. Okay, so straw pellets are prepared by pelletization of the stubble. It's explained over here, and this is done by the process known as torrefication. It is done by torrefication, in which the stubble is exposed to a heat of 250 to 350 degrees. It is compressed and it is exposed to this heat, because of which it becomes brittle and hydrophobic. It does not attract water. Hydrophobic. Wants to be away from water. So this makes it more combustible, right? And it can easily be mixed with coal. So that is torrefication. So this thing is given over here also from the net. You can easily find it. Okay. So yeah. Now torrefication here has been referred to a mild form of pyrolysis. Right. So it's not an extreme, but it is a mild form, maybe in the form of temperature, in the form of exposure. In pyrolysis, it is exposed to inert gas. Maybe that conditions are more, it's milder over here. Now, if you see here, you will find other related phenomena like pyrolysis, carbonization. I think these you can prepare, you should prepare. Swiss technology to reduce double burning, torrefication technology, mentioned 2019. And we are in 2023. So news is again some that is actually repeated. Okay. Now what I want you to do is, obviously stubble burning is a big theme, but we can also look at a definition of the torrefication. We can prepare it on these lines, right? So you should have the definition of torrefication. I have shared this on the Telegram already, so there you can read it. Now, please read this. Punjab decides to replace 20% fuel in brick kiln with straw pellets. Good policy, but there are challenges. So what challenges are there? So the challenge is, first of all, they say 20% has to be used. So it may be a case that 20% is not available, right? Farmers are they're taking more time to do so, and we do not have the adequate infrastructure to process it. So that may be an issue. So this has to be improved. Then besides this, there is the issue of cost. It is more costly when you mix it with the pellets, the straw pellets. So the cost of 1 ton of coal is 14,500 rupees. But when we mix it with, if we look at the equivalent of pellets over here, if we mix it with pellet, 1 ton of coal gives the same amount of energy as 2 ton of pellets. So double amount of pellets are required. And 1 ton of pellet is costing 9,000 rupees. So 2 tons will cost 18,000 rupees. So it is a costlier affair. Here the cost thing is explained. Then This policy that has come, they are saying that stubble from the paddy. But there is stubble from non-paddy also, for example, sugar cane or anything from there also it is there. So this should also be allowed to be used. So this government people, they make the policy, but this accommodation has to be done. Okay, there is this obituary on MS Swaminathan, supposedly written by the Prime Minister himself. Now, we're not analyzing it. We have done the contributions of MS Swaminathan and bringing in Green Revolution, right? And he also expressed concerns that this Green Revolution may lead to unsustainable farm practices in the future. Fine, we've done that. Now, what I want to focus is we can look at it. I look at the idea of farm extension services or linking of science, bringing science to farms. And this is done by, obviously, science is associated with people who are doing research, agricultural university, etc., scientific community, and linking it to farms. So what arrangements are there? What measures are there? So that is something that we can do. And this basically, this is Kisan Vaigyanik. This is farm extension services. So farm extension services, what are there? What prior activities have been done? So that is something that we can work on this topic. You know what? I'll actually make a video on MS Swaminathan. What if an obituary on MS Swaminathan itself is asked in the means examination? So we should be prepared for that as well. But farm extension services, of course, it is important. Okay. Nobel Peace Prize, Nobel has been declared. It is for a jailed Iranian woman activist known as Nargis Mohammadi. She is in jail for human rights. She's fighting for human rights and liberty in Iran. And for this, she has been jailed repetitively, and now she is in jail for a total of 31 years in prison. So, yes. Now, as I told you, I'll be making video on Nobel Prize also, particularly Nobel Prize in the field of science. So medicine, chemistry and physics, and prior ones also I'll do because I feel this is important because these things have impacted our lives and these things must be important from GS3 point of view. We should be able to write more. We should be able to solve MCQs also on the same. Okay, now we are on the editorial section. See, main theme is monetary policy, RBI, same is covered. Okay, so let's cover the first one. Some monetary policy, for the RBI, monetary policy work is done by the MPC committee, which was formed on the recommendations of Urijit Patel committee report. Okay, next. Now, one of the tasks of the Monetary Policy Committee is to manage inflation. One of the tasks is inflation, but the core task. And inflation, there is an agreement between the government and the RBI that inflation will be within the range of 4%. So 4 plus minus 2%. It can be 2 to 6%. So this is the ideal range of inflation. At present, the inflation is at 6.5%. The inflation is at a high 6.5%. RBI does predict that inflation will come to 5.2% in the first quarter of 24-25. Okay, it's 5.2. So the 6.5% is significantly, it is higher than the comfort level of what has been decided by the RBI and the government. Now, naturally, when the inflation is high, we expect RBI to take measures to deal with inflation. And the most likely measure is to increase the repo rate. Traditionally, RBI increases the repo rate. What happens when RBI increases the repo rate? Repo rate is the rate at which RBI lends money to the banks. So when the repo rate increases, so the cost of capital for the bank also increases. And thereby, when the bank lends money to the consumer or industry, whosoever. So the burden of the cost is shared. So this makes the money expensive. This should reduce the demand for money. This should affect that supply of money. And rather, we should expect, because the rates are high, the consumer would park the money in the bank. So the idea is to take out the excess money from the economy by increasing the repo rate. First, it disincentivizes people borrowing, and it incentivizes people to park money into the banking setup. Okay. So it is expected that RBI will increase repo rate, but it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened, and we already knew before this that is the decision that RBI MPC will take. What are the reasons? These reasons were actually given by RBI beforehand only. So one was that inflation is moderating. Sometime back, inflation was upwards of 7%, 7.5, something like that. It was upward of 7%. Inflation has already come to 6.5% without RBI doing anything. And then RBI says that we expect it to moderate further to 5.2%. So inflation is anyways coming down. Why reduce the rates? Why increase the rates? Right? Why affect the economy when it is already happening? And when it comes to inflation, there may be two reasons. Inflation is what? Increase in prices. So this may be because people have too much money. People have money, they want to spend, right? And that leads to inflation. Could be one reason. So it could be because of excess money in the economy liquidity, or it could be because supply of that thing is not there. So the present inflation that we witnessed was primarily coming from the food prices, like tomato going up to 450 rupees per kg, right? So there was vegetable prices had increased, and the concerns over the El Nino effect also. So farm sector was affected. In fact, we expect it to continue to be bad. So supply side issues, and fuel prices are also high. It is somewhere around $87 per barrel. So it has been increasing. It is being from 60 to it has come to 87. If fuel prices increase, then overall prices increase in the economy. So it's actually supply side issues, and not that there is something like excess liquidity in the economy. That is the RBI's viewpoint. So we have to address this basically. Next point. There is already a weak global economy. Right? There is a weak global economy. Something needs to be done to promote the industrial sector, promote expansion of the economy. So credit growth has to be encouraged. We want more investments, we want more capacity creation, and for that money is required. If we increase the repo rate, we are disincentivizing credit growth. And something which is not mentioned. In the last few years, the growth that is happening in the economy, it is actually fueled by the government launching infrastructure projects, etc. So capital expenditure is being done by the government. So government says contracts are issued to the private company. So that is the model of growth that India is witnessing. And now for that, where is the money coming from? Government is basically borrowing money. If the government is borrowing money, so if the repo rate increases, the cost of borrowing increases, the interest liability of the government increases. So the government also does not want this. So that is also one of the reasons. To sustain this capital fuel growth, some additional measures have to be taken. Right. So this is what is the basic analysis of this issue. So what has the RBI done? RBI has actually engaged in open market operations. So to reduce, just a second. Yeah. So to reduce liquidity, RBI is selling bonds. It is selling paper, and people will buy bonds. So as a result, the money will come down. So the RBI has taken this unconventional approach of going into open market operations of selling bonds and raising capital, rather than increasing the repo rate. So RBI is concerned about this factor, but at the same time, it doesn't want to increase the repo rate. Probably it's to do with this capital fueled growth. Okay, that OMO thing I'll explain later. By the way, very important point, all these arrangements come under liquidity adjustment facility. The questions are asked, I've seen with economy, as to which of the following constitutes liquidity adjustment facility. So as the name goes, liquidity, managing the money supply in the economy, that is liquidity. So this is cash reserve ratio, statutory liquidity ratio, open market operations. So all of them are part of the liquidity adjustment facility. Repo rate is also part of reverse repo rate, reverse repo rate is part of liquidity adjustment facility. Next is on this gender politics. Very briefly, Women Reservation Bill has brought to light the attention of gender politics, that is women and politics. So we have this union government calling for this reservation, 106th Constitutional Amendment Act. And the other one is now Madhya Pradesh government saying that 35% of the seats are reserved for the women are Ma, Behan and Beti. So what the author is saying, just a viewpoint, she's saying that yes, all these measures are required, but we are engaging into reductionist politics. You're doing good, but you are engaging in reductionist politics by labeling women as only Ma, Behan and Beti. And something needs to be done for our Ma, Behan and Beti. So you see, something needs to be done. So some man has to do it for Ma, Behan and Beti. That is the viewpoint. And attributing women as the mother, the sister and daughter. Again, it's in forms of relationship rather than as an individual. So that's a notion of patriarchy can be seen. So the author is saying that we need to have nuisance, language of nuisance, and we should be sensitive on this issue. Okay, so that's the basic thing that she's arguing over here. So reductionist politics of labeling women as Ma, Behan and Beti. Okay, another viewpoint now. So we have this women reservation bill, and then Madhya Pradesh government saying that we will reserve government jobs for women. So this is a top-down approach which is required. So directives coming from the top that something needs to be done for the women. Good. But we need a bottom-up approach also. Now here it only says that what women need is aspirational economy, access to education. So that should be there. Infrastructure should be created. Safety and security of the women. Amenities should be there. Right, so all that is also there. So that should be part of bottom-up approach. So that is one way of looking at bottom-up approach. All these actually, makes women participants in growth activity. Another way of bottom-up could be moving towards a women-led development model, rather than women empowerment or women are entitled to be empowered. Women-led development. So making women at the core of the development, women-led development. So that is there. Another way of looking at bottom-up could be that women as a whole are organized, they are collective and take their own decisions. Right. So that could also be a bottom-up approach. Women are able to mobilize collectively the issues of the women, rather they don't have to depend on anybody. So that could also be a way of looking at bottom up. These are my interpretations. It's not written in the article. Okay, international section. White House plans Biden-Xi meeting for next month. Fine. Why? Obviously, it's important, but the context is that relationship between the two countries are not good. So we have to stabilize the relations. Now, why are the relations not good? Because of number of issues. The issue of Taiwan, the issue of creation of God. China feels it is a way of encircling China. Right. The other thing could be that we can always say that China is not adhering to the international laws, the rules. So not abiding by this law of the sea when it comes to South China Sea, affecting the territorial integrity of the other countries. Okay, Belt and Road Initiative has this debt trap issue. So expansionist policies, new imperialism, so that is also there. Okay, so COVID-19, origin of COVID-19 theory, so that goes against China. Then the USA's approach of restricting transfer of technology and be critical about the technology being exported to China. So that is also one of the issues. Plus, there was an allegation that Chinese are spying on the US, which we know actually, but there was a Chinese spy balloon that was there floating over the US. So all these issues have led to weakening of relations between the two countries, which have to be normalized. It is very, very much important. Philippines protest over China's Coast Guard ship nearly collides with the vessels. So this is with reference to the South China Sea. China claims, imagine this is the map of Asia, China claims the entire South China Sea, which is depicted as nine dash line, belongs to China. And south of the South China Sea is the Asian nations, the archipelago. Philippines is right at the top. So they have concern with China. Other than that, there is also a talk of meeting with Vietnam. China, Vietnam prepare for likely Xi visit. So Vietnam's relationship is also not good. So Vietnam, if you look at the relationship, they have the concerns with the South China Sea is there. So what is happening with Philippines, same is happening with Vietnam also. Besides, Vietnam is one of the few countries in the Asian bloc which is quite receptive to the participation of India in the Asian affairs. And it sees India as a credible balance, which can balance the security architecture, and protect their interest against China. So they want to counterbalance this region by using India against China. Russia signals intention to swiftly revoke ratification of nuclear test ban. What is this known as? You must have studied it in your IR class, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Okay, so this they want to do. Another nuclear treaty is Non-Proliferation Treaty. Right, so CTBT they want to do away with. By the way, India has not signed either of these treaties. That is why India is having issues in joining the NSG. And yes, of course, China is objecting to it. Now coming to the economy section. Okay. Yeah. So as RBI surprises on government paper sale, bond yields spike over liquidity fears. Okay. Surprise on government paper sales. So these are it's basically bonds. So what is happening is that we heard that RBI wants to deal with inflation, but it does not want to increase the rates. So what RBI is doing is it is indulging in open market operations. RBI is selling government bonds into the market, the bonds selling into the market. So people who have money, like investors, they are buying these bonds. So when they buy the bonds, what is happening? Money is going with the RBI. So the money that was to be there, which could have been used elsewhere in the economy, is going to the RBI. It's clear, simple. So this is absorbing liquidity from the economy. So when the liquidity is absorbed, it should deal with the inflation. So rather than using the conventional approach of increasing the repo rates, RBI is using this approach. This is known as open market operations. In short, it is written as OMO. Okay, so that was one thing. Second, as RBI does this open market operations, which was not expected, bond yields spike over liquidity fear. Now, what are bond yields? Bond yields are return an investor gets on the bonds. That is bond yields. Okay, one is the bond has a coupon rate, that is interest one gets on the bonds, plus the bonds are traded in the market. So return on the trading plus the coupon rate collectively is known as the bond yields. Okay, so bond yields have gone up. normally when something goes into the economy, like more bonds are there, so it should come down. But in this case, the bond yields have spiked. So on account of liquidity fear. So let me explain this. It's given in your NCRT also. So when the RBI sells bonds, what happens? When the RBI sells bonds, the money from the economy goes towards the RBI. Naturally, this triggers less money in the economy. So naturally, there'll be less money in the economy because the money has gone to the RBI. Okay. So this triggers more demand for money. So therefore, the banks hike interest rates. So banks charge higher interest rates because there is more demand for money. Okay. So when banks charge higher interest rates, this triggers the bond yields to go up. So that is the correlation. So when the RBI sells bonds, the yields of the bond increases. At the same time, the banks also charge higher interest rates because of the scarcity of money or increase in the demand for money. Okay, so that is it. So this news covers this element. Besides, in very short, there is a mention that RBI's dollar sales have picked up. Because the dollar rates are increasing, so RBI is selling dollars. It has forex buffer. So the RBI is selling the dollars, so it is putting in more dollars into the market, which should cool the pricing of the dollar. It should cool the rupee dollar equation. Okay, government and politics. So recently, the Bihar government released the caste survey, the caste survey released. So this is now being taken up at the Supreme Court. So let me tell you what contentious issues are there. So there was already an objection from the center that Bihar should not be allowed to release the caste survey data. Why? So reason number one that was given was that caste survey, which it was saying it is a survey, it is nothing but a census. Now, census can only be issued, by the center. It is the responsibility of the center, not for the state. So it's being challenged on the grounds that are states competent to hold the survey or not? So on this ground, it was challenged. So it's the center's this thing, not the state's domain to do. Besides this, another concern that was raised was issue of privacy. That the state is taking the data and the data may be released of the citizens, so it affects the violation of the privacy. So these two main issues were their contentious issues other than the political reasons. So on these grounds, it was challenged. It was taken up at the courts. So previously, the court had said that they will issue the notice on this case later, and thereby the Bihar government went ahead with this thing. They also took the center into confidence. Okay. Now coming to this thing on the left-wing extremism. So over 38 Maoists held each month in Jharkhand since January 22. And left-wing extremism will be uprooted in next 2 years, says Amit Shah. Okay. Now, what I've done over here is I've prepared a model answer, some important points that should be there as part of your answer writing. But before moving forward, let us look at some of the questions that have been asked in the exam on left-wing extremism. So repeatedly questions are asked. Right. So you know where you can refer, you read it yourself. So basic thing is, UPSC asks this, trends in left-wing extremism. Then what are the causes? What measures have been recommended? What schemes have been taken? So these are the things that UPSC typically asks. And I feel that irrespective of how it is framed, you have to give data as to the trends in left-wing extremism, how dangerous the situation is there, or how well we have curbed it. What are the causative factors? And what is the approach of the government? It's logical, right? Okay. So I have compiled the data. So from the MHA website, we get that I know that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh at that time, I said that left-wing extremism, which is denoted by the red corridor area on the map, it was at its peak. So according to data, 126 districts were affected by this thing, left-wing extremism, also known as Naxalbari Naxalism. By 2022, the number of districts affected has come down from 126 to 70. And it is only in these 25 districts where 85% of the violence is taking place. Fine. So you can summarize this in short, and right. So you can introduce that this is the situation at the moment. Now, what are the reasons? So, four or five broad reasons. The issue of Jal, Jungle, Jameen. Right? So, tribals are mobilized on the issue of the Jal, jungle, and Jameen. The forest land will be taken over by the industrial classes, by the government. That's not a good, this will have impoverished the tribal population. So, that propaganda is there. In some cases, they're genuinely affected, but many a times it was also a propaganda. Okay. Then all these places which are part of the red corridor are one of the backwards, most of the backwards areas. So there is a development deficit in those regions. The left-wing extremists just do not allow any developmental activity taking place. It doesn't allow the government to settle over there. So these areas also has governance deficit. Logical. If governance deficit is there, there'll be development deficit also. The state writ is not allowed to function in those areas. Okay. Other than that, the people feel social exclusion and alienation. Naturally, other parts of the country is getting developed while their areas are not getting developed. It's because of the left-wing extremism, but the propaganda is that they are not, the government is partial. They are not focusing on the tribal issues. So social exclusion and alienation. So that sense of alienation comes in. And in all this, there are these frontal organizations which play a very important role. They're the intellectual class, like the journalists, some people, some political fronts. They help frame the political narrative, propaganda at the intellectual level, justify this issue. And on the ground, it is done by the left-wing extremist. So there are these frontal organizations. By the way, recently NewsClick is being targeted on this ground itself. Now, what measures what is the approach of the government? Now, here one approach, you normally write, okay, these are the steps, but I would suggest you write a short line that the government's approach towards dealing the left-wing extremism is broadly based on the Samadhan and the National Policy and Action Plan 2015. Please Google Samadhan, the full form of Samadhan, okay, and the National Plan Action. Because if you write and Samadhan in detail and then you write this thing, you don't have enough space. So these are the two main things which creates a policy framework. And then you can summarize that this includes the following security related measures, right? Policing, surrender, all those things. Focusing on development, here you can mention the approach of aspirational districts program, right? So that is there. It's basically in these regions. Now we have aspirational block program is there. So focus on the development, prioritizing in those areas. Administrative reforms and also public perception, very important point. So you might be doing good work, but if it is not informed, if it is not communicated, then it leads to bad will. But if public perception is good, so it will obviously be good. So public perception has also to be changed because you have to fight the propaganda as well. So these have to be elaborated. But if these points are there as big headings, you should get marks. Okay, so this covers the news analysis. Thank you for streaming into our channel IASPrimers with me, Shubhashish. Bye-bye and